Hey guys, we're heading to do a recirc pump right now. It's for a customer we've already worked for. In fact, I think you guys saw me fix a pinhole leak on his recirc pump on the 1/2-inch copper line that enters the recirc pump. Well, now the same customer, I guess his recirc pump is not working, so heading there right now. I'm gonna sweat the old one out, sweat the new one in. So I'm messing around with the ball valve on this recirc line here because it won't shut off all the way. It's still dripping out. It's really frustrating. I wasn't able to get it to shut off all the way because it just, you can't solder with water coming through your line like that. So I was trying to suck it out. I thought maybe it was just built up water in there slowly dripping out, but no. It's actually the ball valve won't shut off all the way. I prefabbed this little piece together here, hoping that all I would have to do was make one solder connection. I thought maybe I could get the pipe hot enough to do it, even with the small amount of drip coming out, especially if I like sucked the water out quick enough and then got it all together. But no, man, that's not the way to do it. So I grabbed a 5-gallon bucket and I draped it over where the drain valve is so that I could drain the water down through the drain bib instead of having it come through where I'm trying to make my solder joints. So now I'm just lining it up. I'm gonna put the union on and solder that up. You always want to make sure you clean your fittings, guys. It's like a really big deal, especially for me. I always make sure that I clean the shit out of my fittings. That union I took off of the old pipe, so I'm reusing it. So obviously you want to make sure that's nice and clean and fluxed and everything. I always dry fit everything before I solder it together. I don't just solder as I go. I kind of plot my course. I prefab everything that I can prefab, and then once I put everything in place, I've only got usually a fitting or two to solder once it's all hanging in place here. So to me, it's just easier to do it that way. You know, there's less mistakes. I like doing things that way. So it looks like I've got everything all lined up. I take this piece of 1/2-inch copper here and I kind of shove it under the 90 there, because I don't want, once I start heating the pipe up and the flux starts melting, I don't want that piece of copper slipping, you know, and falling off or falling apart up there. So I always start making my welds from the bottom up, because heat rises. So as you can see, I'm starting low and then I work my way up the pipe. Sweating on the check valve now. Recirculating lines have to have a check valve between the pump and the heater, guys. And the check valve is made to stop the heater's water, the weight from the water in the heater, pressing back up against the water from the pump. So basically what that pump does is it draws water from the line in that. So where that orange handled valve is near the wall, water is coming from that direction up into the bottom of the heater, okay? Now it pulls the cold water out of that line into the bottom of the heater, which forces hot water back up through the hot line. That's a recirculation line. When it goes back up through the hot line, it basically gives you hot water on demand. So it's really cool, really trick little thing to have. It's awesome. If you've ever lived in a house or been in a house with a recirculating pump, you know how big of a deal it is. It's really nice to have. I mean, it's a really luxury thing to have. You know, you don't waste hardly any hot water. I mean, any water, maybe a cup or two at most, and you've got hot water immediately. You know, you go to take a shower, and you turn on the shower valve, and boom, you got hot water. You're not sitting there waiting, brushing your teeth, or doing whatever you do while you wait for the hot water to warm up. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get some sandcloth. I'm going to clean up all my fittings, all my joints, all the copper in between. I just want to make everything look real nice. I always like making stuff look really nice. I want, you know, if I did it, somebody, you know, and somebody asks, hey, who did that? You know, I want them to say, oh, a guy named Chris, you know, he works for so-and-so's plumbing, you know, like. And after I do this, typically, I'll take some WD-40 and I'll coat the pipe with it. And what that'll do is it won't allow the pipe to get that dark copper look or the greenish look that it gets occasionally. I'm putting the washer in now. I did all that soldering. I took the washer out, the rubber gasket from the Union, because I didn't want to melt it. I know that those washers are typically graded to get pretty hot, but I always take them out. Same thing with pressure valves, pressure regulators. I always take those rubber washers out. I just don't, I don't want to take the chance of melting one or something like that. So the water's back on now. I'm checking for leaks, making sure everything looks good. I'm going to turn the water back onto the pump, plug the pump in. Anytime you go in a house and it has a recirc pump, and if it's a larger house, they typically will have a recirc pump. If you have to shut the water off, you want to turn that pump off. You want to unplug it or turn it off however you can, because if you run a pump without water in it, it'll burn it out. And those